Emily Gale has worked in the children's book industry for 25 years in various roles: in-house editor, consultant to a literary agent, children's book buyer, reviewer, freelance manuscript assessor, and as a writer in residence in a high school library. Her writing includes YA novels as well as middle grade novels and junior fiction. Her latest novels are Elsewhere Girls and Outlaw Girls with Nova Wheatman. You can find Emily on Series 3 of Story Tools, creative writing videos to inspire and instruct children in the art of storytelling, and I'll put a link to that down below. Emily also has a Substack newsletter called Voracious with free and paid subscriptions available. Nova Wheatman wrote her first book at 12, a dystopian story about jelly eating. It's predictably unpublished. From there, she honed her story writing skills in the world of film and TV before returning to the thing she loves most, writing prose. Now she writes YA novels and middle fiction and short non-fiction, and has recently published an unforgettable memoir, Love, Loss and Other Scenes. Emily Gale and Nova Wheatman, welcome to Girl in Dark.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jen.
Now, I'm not sure how this is going to go because there's two of you. So what I'm going to do is just throw the questions out and let you two bat them around. I think
we're going to fight. We'll fight. Well, no, we won't really.
So I'm not going to address anything specifically to either of you unless that happens, but we'll just kick off. So between the two of you, you both have really rich bodies of work, really rich and impressive bodies of work across all formats, basically, of children's literature. But today I really want to talk to you about Outlaw Girls in particular, and the book that came before that was called Elsewhere Girls, wasn't it? So this is the second book in a series. I particularly want to talk to you about middle grade because middle grade is, it's tricky. And what you've done is quite extraordinary in that you've collaborated. So I think a good place to kick off is like, how come? Like, can you walk us through the original idea, where it came from, how you worked up to it, just the background of it?
Do you want me to start?
Yeah, you start, Nova.
So and I always get this story wrong. I feel like I always give the origin story and then Emily has to correct me. So that may happen today, but that's okay. So I think had we done the auction? No, see, I'm already getting it wrong.
Yes, this was years before. Okay.
I get it wrong. All right, let Emily try and explain it because she'll do a better job than me.
Yeah, it was literally so many years before the auction. You're going to be really embarrassed now.
Okay. See?
No. Nova came up with the idea to do a feminist historical novel together. By that point, we had become friends, and we became friends partly because we read each other's books. It was The Secrets We Keep by Nova, and then The Other Side of Summer. And we just became friends over one cup of coffee, basically, and through reading those books for each other and helping each other launch books and so on. And so it just somehow seemed very natural to do something together, and nobody could be more surprised than I to be writing a book with someone else. I never thought in a million years that I would be able to creatively collaborate with another writer. I'd collaborated with illustrators, beautiful, brilliant, yep, natural, but I didn't think I'd be able to do it with writing. But for some reason, I don't know what it is, but for some reason, Nova and I can collaborate really well together.
So from my perspective as a sole author, sole practitioner, it does seem like a strange and daunting task. However, Nova comes from film and TV. So Nova, is this more natural for you?
The concept is I haven't ever done it particularly brilliantly before. this I think is the first time for me that it's worked seamlessly. I've certainly collaborated with directors, but not co-written in the same way that we co-wrote this. I feel like
Okay.
I don't know what, it just seemed like it was going to work. I don't know what I just never doubted it. And yeah, it just did. It worked immediately. There sort of was no tricky bit, really. We sort of just both shared a very similar vision for what we wanted the book to be. And
So you started off with saying a feminist
historical.
So you had that. You had that little.
And Australian. We were definitely going to do Australian.
Okay.
We knew that.
Right.
But we didn't. I think that the original draft wasn't even a time slip element, really, was it? It was much more, or it was, but we didn't really meet the other character. So the original draft of Elsewhere Girls was quite a strict retelling just of Kat's life, and we didn't really meet Fanny as a character. And that didn't really work. So we co-wrote it, which is quite remarkable. We actually co-wrote one character, which is kind of remarkable, I think.
To even think about that
now feels crazy.
Can you just walk me through how, like you go off into your separate corners in separate places, and then write a whole lot of stuff and bring it back and compare notes, or what do you sit side by side and write, or do you walk around the room and go, oh yes, looking out the window?
We're limited on sitting side by side. I tell you this, because Nova whispers while she writes.
Does she?
And I'm talking about like constantly. She it's very, very endearing, but not after 45 minutes, it's no longer endearing.
Yep.
I actually now bring headphones to writing sessions because I have to block Nova out so I can concentrate on my own work. Anyway, but what we do is we research together, and we brainstorm together, and we plot together, and we do so much work together before anyone runs off on their own and does their own thing. Right. But then we now quite clearly mark, this is your character, this is your character. And so now you can go off and play with that. But that took a draft to work out that that's how we were going to write these books.
It's
and then
really
once we
complicated.
work that out, super easy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, once we have a story and we know our characters, then it's just a matter of we write the chapters to lead each other into the next section that the other person's writing, send it to the other person. There's some kind of a bit of feedback maybe at that point, and then the other person writes the next section. And we know kind of roughly what the pacing will look like and how many chapters we want to get done each time. So the pass back and forth feels quite fluid. And it's really lovely because you open your email and there's like 2 chapters of excellent and funny and beautiful writing of a book you're creating with someone that you've never read before. And it's the most joyful.
Wow.
It's such a great thing to do. I just think it's wonderful.
It really comes.
I have so many conversations about story before then. Like we've talked so much by that point. We know our story. We don't know the exact plot. We don't know exactly what's going to happen in every scene or anything like that. We're not that meticulous, but we understand the story we're trying to tell. And that's where we start writing from already knowing the story we're trying to tell. Then we try and do it.
Because it's so seamless. I ran a middle grade magic is my course that I run on writing middle grade, and I ran that recently a couple of months ago. And I took Outlaw Girls with me to the live call because I really wanted to talk about it and recommended everybody on the course buy it and read it because it is so seamless. And there's many things about it. It's seamless, but it's beautifully paced and it's beautifully structured. But also it's really pitched really well. Like you really know your reader and you really know your age group really, really well. And that just the space is held really expertly, there's just so many things about this book. And I kept thinking, how do 2 people pull this up together? Like, and also in terms of the voice, the voice, because you've divided it up into two characters.
Yeah. I think that the beauty of writing 2 characters is it gives you freedom to have your own voice, because our voices, I think, are quite naturally different. And so I think it gives us space to have very different voices, but because it's character that you're writing in, it sort of still keeps it very, it's still a very tightly read book, I think, because we've shared so much of that process before we get to that point. But yeah, I think it does read flawlessly, and I think often it's hard for people to pick which character we've written in each book, which is brilliant. Like,
oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's just perfectly even. It's just, but not in a dull way. It's just, you know, evenly. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful and it's beautifully paced. I like hearing that you talked a lot about the story before you jumped in and actually wrote it, so you were really on the same page. What led you to Ned Kelly? You had feminist and you had historical. Did you even have that it was going to be middle grade, or at first did you think it was going to be?
It was always going to be middle grade.
It was always going to be middle grade, right?
Yeah. The time we wrote Elsewhere Girls, sorry, my cat is pushing the computer. The time we wrote Elsewhere Girls, I'd quit YA. So I had no interest in ever writing young adult again. So we both knew that it was. We'll
go down that rabbit hole later.
I know. So
right.
We both knew that we wanted to write. And I think that historical fiction and writing about history really lends itself to that age group, because I think they're very open to exploring history through another kind of lens, I guess, which is what we wanted these books to be. So we sort of knew we wanted them to be young, middle grade books, but for that sort of upper middle grade. What was the first part of that question? Sorry.
What led you to Ned Kelly?
What led to Ned Kelly? So years ago, I'd read Jean Bedford's beautiful book called Sister Kate at uni, and it was a book I studied actually in Australian Literature University, and it's a very fictionalized story of Sister Kate, of Kate Kelly, and it's not historically accurate in the way that our book has tried to be about who she was and that time, but there is much about it that I loved, and I loved the character. And then I started working on a documentary years ago about Kate Kelly and Maggie Kelly, which we never managed to get made, but she'd always remained this kind of fixation. And I think what was fantastic about it was that because Emily's not from Australia, there was so much about the Kelly gang that she suddenly just ran with as a research kind of project that you dived into, didn't you? And you just I mean, she knows more about the Kelly gang than I would say anyone in Australia right now. Her knowledge is, she could go on a hard quiz. You could go on hard quiz and nail it, I reckon. Anyway.
We have to off air. I won't do this on air, but I have to tell you my Kelly anecdote. I did tell you about that note. I mentioned it to you, but I won't bore everybody on air with it. I'll just bore you guys with it afterwards, because I've got a great Kelly anecdote. That's not in the literature anyway, but it's true. Anyway, so the world opened up to you, Emily.
There was this.
I mean, I knew the Ned Kelly story, and I'd read Peter Carey's book before coming to Australia, and so I knew that, and my kids went to school here, so I knew what they knew. I had no idea about what the sisters did during that time, as so many people don't know. And so as soon as there was this hint that there was an untold part of the Ned Kelly story, that was just set me on fire, and I did not leave the library for about 6 months.
And
I read every single book that you can possibly read about Ned Kelly, looking for clues about Kate. I just wanted to find her.
But then you read every single newspaper article that you could find on Kate, and pretty much everything else you could find on Kate, until you knew so much. I was like, I don't even know where that's all going to fit in our book. You have to stop now. And
I just made a very large research document, and I didn't really refer to it that much once I'd started writing, because I just felt like it was all in my head.
It was in your bones.
But every so often I would sort of forget a date or forget a place or whatever, and then I would go and look at it. But I found it very intimidating to write about the Kelly family, especially not being Australian. So I thought, I better get this right. I can't, there can't be mistakes in this, because, I'm the interloper who's now writing about Australian history. So I felt this enormous pressure, and I thought, well, I'll just condense as much as I possibly can into my own research document that we can both use throughout the writing. And so that's
and so that research document was on, I'm getting really practical here, but it was on both of your computers, and you both were dipping in and out of it. Yeah,
It was
and
a
then
a
Google
Google Doc that Nova
Yeah.
could put anything she found in, and I could put anything I found in, and then we could
Yeah.
just, it was shared.
And did you
document.
both have favorite things that you really wanted to include? Like, obviously, you must have come across things that this has got to go in the book, or
I think the
was it
buying
more
the
natural?
bullets, the railway trip, like coming down to Melbourne to buy books, to buy ammunition. That was pretty important, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Very. And that was so exciting to discover that in a newspaper article, that they'd been seen in Melbourne, and a bullet merchant, that's not the right word, had reported that they'd been in there. And the other day, some kids who'd read the book said, "Is that a real bit?" Because obviously they know that some parts of the story are not real, and then a lot of it is real, and they wanted to know if the bullets.
Yeah.
And also,
Wow.
Jen, I think like when we have to try and find a real person, we need to find a real person who has done something as a teenager in order to make them relevant to our readers. That's the tricky bit. So you can find plenty of amazing historical female figures that have been overlooked. But to find someone like Fanny Durack, who at the age of 17 was already having this swimming life and then had dreams to be something else in Elsewhere Girls, or Kate Kelly at the age she was as a teenager, it's hard to find those women. I'm sure they're there, but to actually find them is quite tricky historically.
Find any documentation is hard bit.
So that's the kind of hard bit, is we've got to find women that have done something as a teenager that makes them interesting to our readers. So
Massive challenge.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. It's not that women were written out of history, they just weren't even included. They're just overlooked, weren't they? Yeah.
Not included at
That's
all,
a
especially
huge
as
challenge.
teenage girls. Like they were
absolutely.
Yeah.
And so it would have been just a big day when you found these like the bullets anecdote. The day you found that would have been so exciting to get together and go, oh my God, I found this thing. It must have been so much fun. How long did it take you from the start to the finish, like from when you put pen to paper?
It's really
to write
hard
this
to
one.
say, actually, because in the between we write our own books.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we sort of aren't working on this full time in a way. We're sort of often researching while we're writing our own projects. And then when we're ready to write, I think the writing's actually quite fast.
Mm-hmm.
And from what we, like for me, I usually write like 19 drafts when I do a book on my own, but these are tight. So from what is finished to what goes into copy edit, there's usually only an extra draft or two, really, isn't there? Like we're pretty tight when we finish them off, because we're editing as we go. We're editing each other as we go. We're editing the story as we go.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Structurally, they are so sound. So there's just little things that need to be fixed, but the structure is always there. So that is a huge benefit, I think.
Did your editors comment on that? Did they comment on how clean the manuscript is when you submit it, or is it just...
The first one was Elsewhere Girls was really clean, wasn't it?
It was, and it was a simpler book to write, I think.
Yeah.
This one is a bit trickier because this one goes over 2 years. And
they're together.
That was harder. And they're together, exactly. And so sometimes you're writing both characters in one scene.
Yeah.
And that was a really interesting difference this time between this and Elsewhere Girls. Really different, because Elsewhere Girls are very separate. The two characters don't meet, they swap lives. They live each other's lives.
Okay, I haven't read Elsewhere Girls. It's on my,
so this is a very loose series. Like, the way they slip through time is different. The way they interact with the story is different. In Elsewhere Girls, they swap bodies and time.
Oh, right. Okay.
But obviously in this one, they enter each other's times. And we were very sure that we wanted each one to be different, not to be formulaic. We wanted to creative with the girl in history that we had, right? So how are we going to deal with this time slip? This is going to be different.
And so what about the character of Ruby? Is she based on anybody in particular, or she was just completely dreamed up, or... Because she's pretty well-rounded.
She was just she is just for me, the ultimate like sort of character that I like writing about. But I love those difficult, prickly, obnoxious teenage girls that do the wrong thing, are living a very independent life, are really not very respectful of anything that's going around them, but for various quite good reasons, but have this incredible kind of their own moral code. And I think we really wanted to, and I think that the book does this really well, compare, I guess, the loyalty and the morality of this character in 2024 to who Kate was in her time period. And really, in many ways, they're quite similar. The way they will go into bat for the people they love is the same. Yeah. And I think that's really important. That is what underpins that friendship. So Ruby had to kind of mirror Kate in many ways. It's just that she's wild for her own reasons, not because of who she comes from or the time she lives in. But there's also poverty, and I think that's important, like that sense of class and place and how angry Ruby is. And I think she's very angry at the beginning of the book.
Yeah.
So yeah, she just kind of came out of us. We talked a lot about where we wanted to set her and the place we wanted her to come from, and the idea of a regional part of Victoria that felt like somewhere that could create a character like this. So it's really important that she feels very embedded in place, I think. And we did a lot of research into what that area and what Shepparton would look like, and what the merging of the schools did. All of that stuff is real. So there is a lot of that is kind of, I guess she has been created out of place as well, but also I think out of what Emily and I are both really interested in writing about, which is, angry girls.
Because we're together, we can really support each other to stay true to our original vision. I think one of the hardest things about writing, and especially writing for children, people have so many opinions on what we should be telling children and what stories for children should or shouldn't contain. One of the hardest things is sticking to your path, the thing you want to do, without letting everyone else's opinion affect what you do. And we can just be in our little bubble where we're like, well, we are going to create a girl who is quite angry and perhaps a little unreasonable at the start. And that's okay, because we both believe that that's going to be a really good character that a lot of readers will identify with. And not every character in a middle grade has to be a perfectly behaved girl. We can have someone who messes up. That's okay. And we can reassure each other, no, remember, we want to do this, so it's okay. We keep going. This reads really well, so that's a really nice part of the partnership.
Because it does straddle, it's, I know middle grade and YA, all these things, they're just sort of sales categories at the end of the day, really, aren't they? But they do straddle, the characters really straddle that upper middle grade and YA has them really well. Like they're really kind of, sometimes it's just the lines are really blurred and really, really, really nice way. I did want to talk about the pacing as well. Like how much time do you spend in it? Again, Nova, you said that you would get 2 chapters, coming in, and so then you write from there.
Yeah.
And so do you think that contributed to the pace, because you're both so energetic when you know how writers flag when they're on their own, but when you've got another writer with you, do you think that helped you with the pacing and the?
Definitely. You're definitely trying to impress your co-writer. Like you don't want to be the flabby kind of, the bad, like the bad leg that's letting everything down.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like I make much more of an effort when I'm trying to polish a chapter before I send it off than if it was just me pretending to myself that it was fine, which is all the time. But I also think what we do, and I think that this is a great skill of Emily's, because I think she's amazing at structure in a way that I never will be. And I think the time we spend working out how quick the transitions are between the characters, whether each character has 3 chapters or 2 chapters or 1 chapter or whatever those shifting transitions are, I think that Emily is very good at that. And I think that really helps with the pace, because it's not just this back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
No, not at all.
All the way through the book.
It's
and I think
really fluid.
That's probably not something that I would have even been acutely aware of, because I think I don't necessarily think like that. And I think that as a way to start this book was such a good framework to have in place before we began, because we both knew where we were and how urgently we had to get to the next bit. And I think that gave it a pace that you don't just get if you're writing on your own.
And it was such a great
But
pace for an adventure story too.
Yeah.
I would say that I take my cues about pace from Nova.
Really?
Because of the way she writes, because of her style, because she is a very beautiful economic writer. Like, she manages to write these things that move fast and are really beautiful and so deceptively beautiful. And she just doesn't sort of sit around fiddling about with things for ages. And she's not a pretentious writer. And that, I can be a pretentious writer, but when I'm writing with her, because I know she doesn't like pretentious writing, I think to myself, right, got to get on, can't stay here and describe.
Nova's going to get me.
Pretentious writing.
So I do take, I like thinking about structure, but when it comes to pace, I'm thinking, what would Nova do?
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I love it.
And voice as well, because Nova has this incredible middle grade voice that readers love. So
great.
I read the first chapter that she sends me and I think, right, this is the tone. This is the tone. And I try and think, this is your tone. So I'm taking a lot of cues from Nova, even though I'm probably the kind of slightly bossy one of
it's not bossy,
not in a bad way, just like I'm, like, here's the research document now, let's look at structure.
No, I think the fact that we do that much work at the top, I think it just does put in a framework. And I am not a plotter, so this for me is a joy to write like this, because I come to it feeling safe almost. I sort of come at the beginning going, oh my God, I know where I am. And I never feel like that when I'm writing. I usually have no idea what's going to happen. And I start writing and hope I find a story. This feels like I know what the story is. Now I just get to play with the character and the world and waiting for Emily's chapters to come in, which is just such a beautiful way to write a book. Like, it really is.
So I get this. Can I just get this straight? So you don't plot.
I do with this. But not usually.
You do with this. Okay. Because I thought that what you talked about was that you worked a lot out at the start. So you worked at the top, as you referred to, and then the plot kind of unfolded as you went. But you actually plotted at the start, did you?
Well, we plot a little bit.
It's a hard question.
I guess what we know with this, Jen, is we know when the characters will go back and forth in time.
Right. Okay, that's a key.
But for example,
we know that we knew those were going to be turning points.
Yeah.
They're ready-made turning points.
Yeah. But we didn't really know. We didn't know things like, I mean, I don't think I knew that Ruby was going to steal a tractor until Ruby stole a tractor.
Okay,
That sort of stuff. Did I?
Yeah, so not plotting to that detail, but overall.
Yeah. Oh, okay, we talked about
her stealing something. Yeah.
Stealing something, that's right. So we knew
the tractor was pretty rad.
We'll have loose terms, loose ideas for what's going to happen, but it's not nailed down. And often what happens is the chapter from the other person comes in and you go, oh, this does slightly shift where I'm going to go now, or where I thought I was going to go. So there's some reaction to what you get, I guess. I don't know if I'm going to
that's really interesting, because there's also, I was going to say, did you ever feel like, oh shit, I might be writing, Emily, or I might be writing Nova into a corner here, like I'm going to set up this big shitty thing that's going to happen and then I'm going to let her write it?
Sometimes, to be honest, sometimes I hoped that when Emily made me write Kate now with Ruby, when I was just like, oh fuck, I really hope I don't have to stay in this bit because I don't want to write this next bit. I hope I can get out of there quickly. So yes, occasionally I was hopeful that I could switch back fast enough for it to be Emily's turn to fix that problem that was currently on the page.
Yeah. But of course, you've always got each other to physically talk to as well. So it's not as if you're just left in the lurch. I remember years ago there was a in The Age, they had this write a story thing, and they called in all these children's writers, and it was over a period of weeks, and each of us would write a piece of a story, and it would be published, and then the next person had to write it, and it could get a bit tricky.
Yeah.
It could get a bit
bet.
tricky, depending on who got your bit and what they did with it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no spaceship.
Imagine that.
Yeah, so I think it's really interesting. I think the whole, once you've resolved voice and all the other things and how you're going to research it, this thing about pacing and plotting would have been quite a big deal. But you've just pulled it off. Yeah.
Well, we didn't pull it off the first time. Like with the first draft of this one, it didn't quite work with it being over 2 years, and we had to.
And you both agreed on that straight away?
We had to work on that. Well, it was our editor said this doesn't work.
Okay.
You've got to make it work. So we had to do something slightly different with the transition. It's so hard to remember the different drafts, but I do remember that we had to make 2 years work, and we really wanted it to be over the 2 years because it's such an important time period for Ned Kelly and therefore for Kate. But that's definitely felt more difficult to write. And I remember Nova saying, "Oh, I'm not sure about this 2 year thing," because I think, Nova, your books are often in a much shorter time span. So that's where you're comfortable with.
I hate moving time.
Right.
So she kept saying, "How am I going to move time?"
And did this mean that Ruby had to
grow up?
Yeah.
And so I met the original draft. There was a whole story with Ruby that was really complicated of what she was getting up to now at the local agricultural show.
Right.
And it was really like, I loved it, but it was heavy and it was emulating the Kelly gang and the siege, and it wasn't working. And basically we just ended up culling it and making it a really simple shift, where I just learned how to shift 2 years really quickly, and it was a good thing to learn. I'm really bad at that, and it's really good at that, at like telling a story over a long period, and I find that really challenging. So this was that was a big challenge for me, and I remember thinking at the time, I don't want to do that. So we did have to try and fix how to do it, but it was a bit of fiddling. I think that third
like
act.
Anything that you overthink, like people always say, "Well, but how do you figure out the time slip? How do you send a character back in time?"
Yeah.
And it's really, the trick is not to overthink it. And just to say, this is happening to this character. It's happening. And write it as if
I love the way you do the slip with the horse.
Yeah.
Like I read that and I read it again, and I don't know, I dwell on it because it's one of those things that's really important to get it right and to get it so it's convincing and seems plausible, but it's not. But it's like, I can sit with that. That's brilliant, because time slip, of course, I'm not saying your book's not plausible, I'm saying the whole time slip concept, but it works, and it works so beautifully, and I think it does work because of the simplicity of it.
I would say that is, again, I think the thing about co-writing a book is you both come to a book, and if you trust each other, you bring your best parts of who you are as a writer and you put them together, and you've got kind of almost a super kind of ability to write this book, because you're coming with two, you kind of shed the bits you're not good at. I mean, the time slip concept thing for me is really tricky, but Emily was like, it's horses, it's this. She just got it, understood it, worked it out really quickly, and it was just seamless. That is not something that I would probably feel confident doing on my own. So I think that is where writing a book together works really well, because you are bringing these very different skill sets.
Yes.
The way you write. And if you just trust that the other person knows and you defer to them sometimes, I think it just is a really good process, I reckon.
Beautiful fusion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you guys get inspired by was it Kath Crowley and Fiona Wood? Did they write a book together?
They wrote
a book with Simone Howell as well, the three of them.
Oh, with Simone Howell as well. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, Take Three Girls.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, okay.
Which is a beautiful YA.
It's YA, yeah. So did you take any inspiration from that collaboration, or maybe.
I just remember thinking, oh, well, we're friends, we can write a book together.
Yeah. But we do know them really well, and so we had heard them talk about writing the book together. And I remember one thing they said was they agreed early on that when they were writing that book, they wouldn't let that interfere with their individual projects. So if someone said, I need to pause because I'm doing Words in Deep Blue, then everybody would agree, okay, that's okay, because that's your individual project and this one will wait. And that's, you need to have that kind of understanding with each other as well.
God, yeah.
We both write individual things, obviously, as well. So you have to have the kind of relationship where you can say, I need to take a break from this for a while. And yeah, you just have to put it aside and wait for it to come around again.
And that's actually really nice, because I think often when we're writing, there's a sense of urgency. And I think what is lovely about these books is that they are because we want to write them. It's not, it doesn't feel like something that we're going, oh, well, we have to do it because we've got a contract and we've got to write it. This is actually a really joyful thing to write from the very outset. And I think even the beautiful thing of deciding who the person is going to be is just like this incredible, it's like a giddy kind of moment where you go, we're going to write about this person. It's really exciting. You know, so I feel like these books are special in that they aren't like to schedule in the same way. Obviously, once it's in the train of editing, it is. But before that point, there is a fluidity about it. And I think that's lovely. That's a good thing to do. So
that was actually going to be my, sorry, Emily.
Because Text, the publisher, and they understand what we want to do with these books, and they don't say, look, we need one a year for XXX, and we don't want that. We want to say to them, look, we've got this idea. Do you want to publish this? Great. Okay. We'll write that then. And that's very different to series writing or,
absolutely.
very free, very free.
So that's what I was going to say is like, how did you, God, it's bloody freezing here. Is it cold where you are? Hang on, I have to turn this heater on.
Too bad. I might have to turn the light on. I'm getting in the dark again. I keep getting in the dark. It's only 4 degrees. What's going on?
I feel like my teeth are going to start chattering and that's going to come through on the audio. What was I going to say? So how did you pitch this?
We'd actually already written Elsewhere Girls.
Well, how did you pitch Elsewhere Girls then?
They read the whole book.
So we had written
is Elsewhere Girls with somebody else?
No, Text.
No, it's with Text. Okay, right. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I sent a one-page synopsis to Jane Pearson, and I think within about 20 minutes she said, please send me the manuscript. And then the next day she said, would you like to come to a meeting?
So, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
We were like, yeah, sure, we'd love to. And we went to the meeting, and then I think about 2 hours after the meeting, they made the offer. It was like the most ridiculous speed I've ever experienced in publishing in 20 years.
Okay, for those who are listening and are aspiring authors, do not hang your hat on this.
No. This, I have to say to the aspiring authors, this has never happened to me before or since. This is one.
It was wonderful though, because she just got it. Like she just got it and loved it and ran with it. And it was like, that's all we wanted, was someone to go, this is great. We want to publish it. We love it. It was really lovely.
Yeah.
And so you're really clear about this being a heart project and not being something that you want to feel burdened by or have very serious deadlines around. But I'm assuming there's another one.
We've got a person.
Yeah.
We haven't got much further than a person, just because we're both trying to finish stuff. But it feels like it feels like it would be a natural thing to have 3.
It does.
It
does, absolutely.
For that Christmas bind up, Jen, that will come.
That box set,
Box set.
Leather like a saddle or something. I don't know. Right.
Yeah. So the aim, I guess, is to sort of get through what we're both doing and get some.
And what about the promo of this? So, obviously we're doing promo now, but do you go to schools together ever, or is that just too hard to
We
coordinate?
are tomorrow, actually, which will be
All
really nice.
right.
And we've been booked for some festivals together, which is the first time that we did Williamstown Literature Festival on Sunday, and then we're going to Bendigo and we're doing Right Around the Murray. So it'll be great that
Oh, that's wonderful.
we're actually getting to talk to students together and present together, because it feels like so much of this project is about our friendship underpinning that. And I think that
Definitely.
for hear about that is a really lovely and quite unique way to hear about a creative project. So yeah, it'll be great. I'm really looking, and also it makes school visits so lovely if you've got your
So
friends.
much fun. I know, right? You've got
Yeah.
a buddy.
Yeah. Nice.
That's wonderful. And also that you're going to regional Victoria as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
where the passion for the Kelly Gang is even higher,
Yeah.
if possible. The stars are lining up there as well. Yeah. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. So to wind up, have you got any tips for aspiring middle grade authors in general, and also those who are thinking about collaboration? Is there anything you'd like to share or say? I know I'm putting you on the spot here.
Ooh.
I'd say in general, just read as many middle grade books as you can and actually really understand the age group, because I think there's younger middle grade and then there's upper middle grade, and I think they're very different in terms of what you can write about, the characters, the concerns, the language, the rhythm. And I think sometimes it's just that we don't know enough about what those kind of age groups want in a story. And then I don't know how you even find your voice. I feel like that's such a hard thing to find. I don't know. That's it for me.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's really interesting to get your take on it. Emily?
I think that trying to please everyone is the worst thing that you can do. And I do often see writers on social media asking for some kind of confirmation about different parts of writing, like, should I be writing in this tense? Should I be writing from this perspective? Is this the right thing? And there aren't answers like that. And if you try to please every single reader, this sort of en masse reader, you'll just hurt yourself. I think you have to have an idea of a reader and just write for that reader. That's enough. It's enough to just think about a particular kind of reader rather than what will be so popular, what will be, what will be a hit. Just really understand the story that you want to write and write for a particular reader. And that's it.
And in that mix, are you also writing for yourself?
Oh God, yeah, please yourself. I mean, there's so much of this industry that is like, these tiny little injuries that you suffer all the time. You have to sort of become resilient about. So you absolutely have to please yourself when you're writing. That's the best bit.
Yeah.
That is the best bit.
Yeah.
Nothing else compares to racing through your own book and pleasing yourself.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're not in service, like we're creating, and you've got to enjoy it.
It's so important. And it's something I've harped on about for years, is this take ownership of what you're doing.
Yeah.
You are in charge. It's your creative project. At the end of the day, it's you.
Yeah. And also just find one good reader. You don't need 50 readers, to read your work while you're writing it. I think that's a disaster, because you're just getting different advice from every single person you give it to. Find one person you trust, who is going to say, yeah, this is good, or no, this is crap. And it's that person, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great tip too. That's a great tip.
A whole lot of people is just like, ooh.
Yeah, you're gonna ride a camel, aren't you?
Yeah, you are. It's gonna be a disaster.
Yeah.
And co-writing, I think the only tip I'd say is I guess you've got to work with someone you trust and someone you respect and someone who you are close enough to that you can be honest with and hear when your work is not working. and try to put the project above your individual ego. And I think that's sometimes quite a tricky thing, but that would be my advice. Like, I think our friendship is really important to me, and I always trust that anything Emily says about the book is being said because that is not working. And so I will always look at it. I would never disregard something that she'd said unless I, absolutely didn't agree, and then we would have that conversation. But I think you have to invest in what the other person says about the work, and you have to trust it, I think.
And as you say, respect.
Respect them. It's hard. I mean, I wouldn't say if you haven't written, I wouldn't want to have started as a co-writer. I'm glad I wrote my own books first. I think it would be very hard.
Oh God, absolutely.
Co-writer.
Yeah. Oh, that would be be torturous. I couldn't think of anything worse. Yeah. No, good point.
You've got to love the other person's writing.
Yeah.
Yes. It's not a cynical exercise. It's love.
Yeah.
Like I want my writing to be smushed with Nova's writing.
Nova and Emily sitting in a tree.
Yeah, it's a love match.
Yeah.
So I think, that's
really it is. Yeah.
Don't just kind of cynically think who would be great to work with. Who do you love, and who loves your work? Who do you actually believe loves your work as well? You've got to have that.
Yeah. I would say Fiona and Simone would be like that as well. They would say the same thing about the three of their work. Like, they each love each other's writing. Sure. That's why their book is so brilliant.
Yeah.
It's a really beautiful way to put it, actually. Nice.
Yeah. Oh, this has been so much fun. I can't wait till you write the next one and we can have another follow-up interview.
Thank you.
It'd be really wonderful. But this has been so great. You've both been so honest and open. It's just been a lot of fun, but also loads and loads of insights for our listeners to take away as well. So it's a win-win. Yeah.
Thank you, Jane.
And we'll look out for you.
Really, really admire everything that you do with Girl in the Dark. And
thank you.
It's an incredible community, and also have just, must say again, absolutely love your courses, and your picture book course is amazing.
Oh, thanks, Emily.
I tell everyone, do Jen's story.
Well, I'm going to be looking for you two on the socials as you get around the different festivals that you're heading off onto, and I'll hear about what mischief you get up to. But for now, we'll sign off, and I'm going to go and light the fire.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. See you later. Bye.
Bye.